Pay close attention. The news you're about to see is fulfilling Bible prophecy.
Welcome to another edition of YPN News, bringing you the news that relates to Bible prophecy and foretold by Yeshua Hawkins. The conflict in Syria is once again dominating the news this week as the United States decides whether or not to get involved. Now more than 100,000 people have been killed and countless injured, while the whole region of Syria has been destabilized. The president said he is weary of war, but once again he is preparing the American people for just that, releasing an intelligence report that states the U.S. has high confidence that the Syrian government recently attacked its own people with nerve gas.
Now, according to the administration, that attack cost 1,429 people their lives, including 426 children. President Obama says Assad and his government must be held accountable, but as 5 U.S. Navy destroyers are ready to launch cruise missiles at Syria, he has not made a final decision on how or when to do so.
Secretary of State John Kerry revealed the evidence which has the Obama administration convinced that Assad's government was responsible for the chemical attack on its people. He emphasized, in all of these things that we know, all of them, the American intelligence community has high confidence. High confidence, he said, this is a common sense. This is evidence. These are the facts. Now, most of the information has come from spy satellites and intercepted communications.
On August 21st, satellites detected the flashes of rockets being fired and detonated. Secretary Kerry continued, "We know where the rockets were launched from and at what time. We know where they launched and when. We know rockets came only from regime-controlled areas and went only to opposition-controlled or contested neighborhoods. 90 minutes after these attacks, internet videos surfaced showing the horrific results."
Now, analysts admit the evidence adds up to high confidence, but not a smoking gun. This conclusion was reached knowing intelligence about Iraq turned out to be wrong, and that a previous Secretary of State, Colin Powell, had ended up presenting a bogus case for war. Kerry stated, "Our intelligence community has carefully reviewed and re-reviewed information regarding these attacks. And I will tell you, it has done so more than mindful of the Iraq experience. We will not repeat that moment," he said.
Syrian Foreign Minister Walid Muallim commented on the charges of the Obama administration, saying that Secretary Kerry had failed to offer any proof that the Syrian government carried out a chemical attack, and warned that this was a prelude to an aggression that would result in hundreds of innocent victims, and the U.S. would be responsible.
The Pentagon has moved an amphibious ship with several hundred Marines on board into the eastern Mediterranean, just in case the proposed limited airstrikes have unintended consequences.
In Tishreen Park, in the government-controlled heart of Damascus, residents continued with life despite the recent chemical attacks just 5 miles away. Many Syrian children have reported suffering terrible nightmares brought on by the violence around them, and parents there are worried as much about another chemical attack as they are about an American strike.
Amal Akawi says the fear is keeping her awake. Now, in a CBS interview, she stated, "I hear many countries will attack us. It's terrifying." Now, another woman nervously made a comment directed towards the U.S. She said, "End this with the least amount of damage and death possible."
Well, we also are experiencing the fear growing regarding the things that are taking place in Syria, and everyone in the States is up in arms as to what to do, as we just stated. And the U.S. president was very vocal regarding his position in regards to these recent chemical attacks in Syria. YPN's Larry McGee has our next report. And Larry, the question is, what exactly is the president's latest assessment?
Today, guys, The president referred to the attack as a threat to U.S. security. During a meeting this week with Vaultec officials, the president communicated that if war does come, it won't last long, and that at present the options on the table exclude any ground attack and instead center around the narrow concern of chemical weapons, while understanding there will not be a solely military solution to the underlying conflict and the tragedy which is devastating Syria. America, saddled with the heavy death count of soldiers from both the Afghan and Iraqi wars, has now roved to Syria with the idea that the burden to punish the Syrian government has fallen to the American people. The president stated that he does not want the world to be paralyzed, and being frank, he said, part of the challenge that we end up with here is that a lot of people think that something should be done, but nobody wants to do it. Officials say that the president is appalled at the carnage caused by the chemical weapons attack, but he is visibly hesitant because he knows the country is. In a statement to reporters, President Obama himself said that he believes the American people would prefer a greater focus on the nation's economy and improving employment. And he assured everyone in the end, no one ends up being more war-weary than him. Clarifying the president's position on the state of U.S. security, commentators say that the president does not mean to imply that there is intelligence or even a sense that there is a plot by the Syrian government to strike the U.S. with chemical weapons. He is utilizing, they say, a much broader definition that if an international prohibition against the use of chemical weapons isn't enforced, then could it mean they would be used in other places, either in Syria or in another region? The fear that the president has, according to his advisors, is that if this is not punished, other neighbors in the region could be threatened, and terrorists might possibly get a hold of such weapons and someday in the future threaten the American people with them. With that argument in hand, the Obama administration was lobbying Congress members long distance this week with the intent of gaining support for military action. The White House has provided a series of briefings for key lawmakers laying out options, but many in Congress are looking for more. They want any Army action to receive congressional approval first. Their own schedule, however, makes that difficult. Congress has been out for a month and doesn't return to Washington for more than a week. Nonetheless, that did not deter over 160 House members, Democrats and Republicans, from signing letters this week urging the president to receive authorization from Congress before striking Syria. But Eliot Engel, the chief Democrat on the House's Foreign Relations Committee, says there is not time for that. Continuing, he says there is clearly a precedent where the president can act and then come to Congress later on, or come to Congress in 60 days. And he is comfortable with that. Situations like this, he says, call for swift action. From the other side of the floor, during a telephone town hall with constituents, Senate Republican Lindsey Graham stated the president has revealed too much already. This idea of telling the Syrians when we're going to attack, how we're going to attack, what we're going to attack with, and when we're going to stop is just crazy, the senator said. It's absurd. Most leaders, however, of the relevant national security committees support limited strikes, but among the general membership of Congress, there is more opposition. A confused mixture from this system of strife and debate, which now has its sights set on Syria and is priming itself to deliver yet more desolation. For YPN News, I'm Larry McGee. Baton Jeff, back to you.
Interesting. We'll see how that plays out. Russia recently has called the U.S.'s threats against Syria unacceptable. The Russian Foreign Ministry said that any military action that bypasses the UN Security Council would undermine international law and that the potential aggression would cause more confrontation and increase the number of victims in the already war-torn country.
On the other side of the coin, the U.S. and France have called for a strong message to Syria to hold it accountable for the chemical weapons attacks. Now, these remarks were made after a telephone call between French President Francois Hollande and U.S. President Barack Obama.
Although the focus right now is on Syria, Syria's surrounding neighbors are on high alert, and many feel this could be a catalyst for a large-scale regional war. A big concern is how will Iran react. Iran has recently said that any attack on Damascus will be considered an attack on its 35th province. And the thinking is that Iran could activate Hezbollah and the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps.
What they'll try to do is to get those groups to attack those countries that are supportive of a U.S.-led strike in Syria. Iran could also close the Strait of Hormuz, which would affect around 20% of the world's oil supply. Now, the head of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard has said if Damascus was to be attacked, it would see the immediate attack and the immediate destruction of Israel.
Of course, the Israeli government is taking these statements seriously and has stated that it is involved in any activities inside Syria, but that they will respond and will respond harshly if they come under attack. Currently, the Israeli army is calling up reservists as well as deploying its Iron Dome missile defense system and other interceptors over the north of the country.
The citizens of Israel have been lining up at post offices to stock up on gas masks, and there have also been emergency drills held at schools. Now, many at this time, it's been reported, are actually clearing out their bomb shelters for fear of an attack. Maybe in an attempt to calm the fears, the Jerusalem Post, an Israeli newspaper, ran a headline that stated, "Keep calm, but carry on." And currently, the mood in the region is anything but calm.
Oh, I can only imagine. And there is a growing sense among many within the region and outside that region, for that fact, that this conflict could result in an all-out regional war. And of course, it surely looks like it's leading up to that. Well, the prophecies as foretold by Israel Hawkins in this time period reveal that it will result in a regional war in which a third part of mankind in that fourth part of the earth will be killed. But it won't stop there. Tensions will continue to build until 4/5 of mankind is destroyed. But you can be a part of that 1/5 who will survive. Your key to survival is just a letter, phone call, or email away. Here's how.
You can contact the House Yahweh by writing them and requesting your free Prophetic Word magazine and monthly newsletter. You can write them at The House of Yahweh, P.O. Box 2498, Abilene, Texas 79604. You can call them at 1-800-613-9494. You can also visit them on either of their websites. The first one, www.yahweh.com or www.yisroelhawkins.com. You can email them at info@yahweh.com. And for any calls outside the United States, you can call the number on your screen now.
Up next, Yisroel Hawkins. For all of us here at YPN News, I'm Katan Alexander.
I'm Jeffrey Hemmerman.
Thank you for watching.